Good evening. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video. So, this topic is about conflict resolution, whether it be from the conflicts that are mild, where not a lot is being said, and the conflicts that are not so mild, where there are a lot of things being said, aka an argument. So, I've seen a lot of podcasts and been in different conversations regarding this topic, or regarding, couples arguing, or even friends and family disagreeing on different things. Mainly couples, but this solution that I am about to tell you, which is a very simple one, can really go for just about any conflict. So, whenever we are dealing with a difficult person, it's good to, number one, slow down. We live in a world where everything is so sped up. Everything is right now, microwave. We want it now. We're so anxious. We're always moving towards something. And the only people that normally slow down are the elderly and sometimes children. But even with kids, what do we say? They grow up so fast. But a lot can be learned from the elderly as far as how slow they move, how slow some of them are to speak, how slow they drive. It's a protection. It's a protection against outside things, and possibly internal. How many car accidents do you hear or see about that involve an elderly person? Not too many, because they're usually driving really slow. You don't hear a whole bunch about old people having arguments. I used to work in a nursing home years ago in dietary when I was a teenager, and I never once heard an altercation between the elderly residents. Even if we were on the ward where more of the mentally unstable patients were at, it was still usually quiet. There's something to be said about that quiet, about that slowness, about that lack of speed. It does something tremendous for us. So my very simple solution to conflict resolution, whether it be not very loud or loud, such as arguing, is to simply slow down. Number one, in the moment, or even before the moment, slow down. Begin to be slower to speak your mind on things. Begin to take a moment before you respond. Just slow down. All the way. Maybe even verbally say, you know, I need to slow down a minute. Just give me 1 second. And actually slow down. Don't do the, excuse me, the whole give me 1 second for you to come up with a slick remark. No. Just say, give me 1 second. Just give me a minute. I need to just process this. Or give me a minute to process this. What you just said or what you just told me. Or, don't put your finger up in their face and wag it and say, give me a minute. No. Just say it nicely. Give me a minute. And if you are already upset or angered by whatever is happening and you may not have time to say, give me a minute, the other thing to do is to, in the moment, as soon as you realize I'm yelling or I'm about to yell or this is getting me to where I'm now about to yell, just stop. Halt. Just stop. If it looks crazy, if you're stopping and just looking at them for a minute, it's okay. It's better that you stop than keep going. Keep going to run off of that cliff of anger or anxiety or whatever it is that you're feeling. It's better to just stop and say, okay. So you can say, give me a minute. Second thing, you can just stop and say the words, okay. Whether you agree with them or not, whether you feel like they are right or not, whether you feel like your point makes so much sense more than theirs or not, you just say, you stop and you say, okay. Maybe even nod your head while you're saying okay. The third thing you can do is saying, wait a minute, or I need to stop for a minute, doesn't work for you. Or if just stopping and saying, okay, doesn't work for you, you can try this. You can try counting to 10. In your head is better. Especially if you're face to face with your boss or your child or your spouse or whatever. You might want to pause, breathe for a minute, and count to 10 in your head. Ooh. Excuse me. Or you might want to, let's say you're over the phone with someone, or it's like you're in customer service, or you're doing something where we're working from home and you're on the phone, maybe try counting the 10 on your fingers. Something about counting, because you're shifting your brain to thinking about something else, even though it's slight. It's hard to think about 2 and 3 things simultaneously. Our brain can hold a whole bunch of different information, yes, but as far as to actively think about a bunch of different things at one time, that's a little more difficult for us, because your body's already telling your brain, it's already telling your body everything to do at once. So you have all those different synapses and things happening, neurons firing for that. So for you to be able to think about one thing and do another at the same time, it's not that easy. Somewhere in there's going to be a break. So if you were upset, if you were about to get to the height of that anger or whatever with someone, and you just stop and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Usually when you get to 10, you've probably forgotten what you were just about to say. You have changed as far as the octaves in your voice, and how loud you were about to be will decrease. You automatically begin to calm your mind, your emotions, and your body down. You cool down, basically, by just doing that quick breath. It don't even have to be a real deep breath. It could just be, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you ask. You don't go back in to say. You go back in to ask. You go back in to be curious and not judgmental. You go back into the conversation to ask the person, what did I do? Or why is this upsetting you? Or what can we do to fix this? What can we do to resolve this? How can we work together to make this a better outcome? You give it a what, a why, a how, a solution when you come back to it. You don't count to 10 and then say, and another thing. No. You don't do that. So again, my 3 simple ways to get to conflict resolution are: number 1, say, you need a minute. Give me a minute. Two, just stop and say, okay, whether you agree or not. And 3, breathe and count to 10. If you do either of those things, actually saying, I need a minute, saying, okay, or counting to 10, I guarantee you that more often than not, those conflicts will either decrease or disappear altogether. The look on the other person's face is going to be like, huh? It's hard for another person to get mad at you saying, you know, I need a minute. Even harder for another person to get mad at you saying, okay. Now, if you're saying okay and your face is looking like, you know, you want to kill them, then you might want to work on your facial expressions. And you might need to turn away for a second while you say, okay, I don't know. But saying okay, it gives room for the other person to be right. And even if they're not absolutely right, you know, like absolutely, like they're right entirely and you were wrong to the fifth power, even if both of you have a good point or whatever the case may be, just stopping and saying, okay, it acknowledges them. It acknowledges that they also had a valid something to say, or that what they said was valid to you, even if it didn't make sense, or even if it wasn't correct or whatever. Just saying, okay, regardless of how you feel about what they said, just saying, okay. Give space for that other person to also regroup, to rethink, well, maybe they didn't think my idea was stupid. Maybe they didn't think my idea was bad or mediocre, whatever that the conflict may have been about. When you give things an opportunity, when you give things an opportunity to slow down in that moment, you give both of you guys the opportunity to get it right in that moment. Because what happens when we don't do it, either of these things, or there might be some other thing that you come up with that might be good to do in conflict resolution, but this is my little list, you know. But what happens when we don't do those things in the moment, and by in the moment I mean when it's happening, when the conflict is about to arise or whatever, when we don't slow down, we don't get the chance to pivot at that time. We don't get a chance to move differently at that time. We don't get a chance to change the outcome at that time. When we don't, we have the full-blown argument, the full-blown disagreement, the full-blown whatever that it is, and now we have to recover from that. Now we have to make amends. Now we have to clean it up. Now that memory is a stain in the brains of either people, or in the brains of our children, or in the brains of our spouse, the significant other, person that we claim to love. Now that argument, that conflict is stuck with them, and it's stuck with you. That argument, that conflict is stuck with your child, stuck with your parent, stuck with your sibling. I could go on. Stuck with your coworker. Worse yet, your boss, or whomever is making sure your check gets signed. And it could be a domino effect of even more negative things, when you could have just stopped in that moment and did one of those three things and said, I need a minute, or okay, or took a breath and counted to 10. I don't know everything, but I know a lot. Okay. And I hope this helps somebody. And I just wanted to make sure that, on top of all the information that we get about, why we have these difficult things happen, we also need a solution for when they happen. But y'all have a beautiful, blessed evening. This has been conflict resolution strategies and tips. Free game. Toodles.